Gonna order another Dominos tonight. Well, making your own pizza at home isn't that hard, so let me show you how you can do it.
Cooking with Struan.
You're gonna grab some passata, salt, some nice flour, a little bit of olive oil, cheese, whatever toppings you want. So I'm gonna use those, and leftover mince. And then you're either gonna use baking powder or some baker's yeast. If you want to use baker's yeast, it'll take probably around 3-4 hours before you can eat. Baking powder, I've come up with a recipe, you can eat it immediately. Straight away, first thing we're going to do, crank that to your max. So I'm going to be making the instant one, so I'm going to be using baking powder. But if you were to make it with yeast, all you'd have to do is take 1 teaspoon of your good old yeast, chuck that in half a cup of warm water, and leave that for around 10 minutes to activate. But because we're not doing that, we're going to start straight away with our flour, our salt, and our baking powder. Grab yourself a nice mixing bowl, grab your flour, and chuck in 200 grams. Boom, that is not 200 grams. Baking powder, 1 teaspoon. Grab your salt, set it to a nice fine adjustment. Just give it a good sprinkling. So now you're going to want to mix this up, so grab yourself a spoon and go ham. It's mixed. Go ahead, grab your olive oil and whoop, chuck in half a tablespoon or whatever. Give that a good mix. Get your hands in there and break up those clumps. So now what we're going to want to do is get that water in there. Make a little divot and whoop, there's your half spoon of water. If you're too thick or thin, add more water or flour accordingly. Make a spot, flour down, and dump it out. Now let's just knead it together. Add more flour if it needs it, or more water if it's a bit too crumbly. So that baking powder is going to react with the water, which is going to release some carbon dioxide, so you get those nice bubbles like you're using yeast. Won't be quite as good, but it works alright if you're a student. You got yourself a little dough ball. Now if you're using yeast, you want to cover this up for the next 3 hours to rise. Then you would give it a quick another knead and give it a bit of a slap to activate that yeast, and then leave it for another hour to prove, and then you would roll out. Because we're using the baking powder, it's already getting the air into it, so we can just roll it out now. So grab your trusty rolling pin and go for it. Make sure you add some flour when needed. If you want to look like a pro, try giving it a good whip. But if you're using baking powder, that doesn't work. There you've got a nice sheet, or a nice pizza base there. So you're going to want to just quickly put that to the side. Give your baking tray a nice little spreading of flour, because no one likes a pizza that's stuck to the baking tray. And just spread that out. So that baking powder is still going to be reacting to the liquid, so just leave it there. And prepare all your veggies. Now this is a cool trick I learned. See the skin on the onion and that little bit of the capsicum you don't want to eat? Quick, easy way to get it out. Just get another chopping board and drop it on it. There you go. Even puts it up at the top for you. Now chuck your tomato in there as well. And fun fact, it works just the same as long as you just rotate it 90 degrees to chop your veggies instead. And there we go. Oh, put too much spring in it. Let's try that again. Boom. That worked that time. So now you've got your veggies all chopped up. Then over if we pan to the right. Our dough should have nicely puffed up a little bit. Can't see it too much, but it's definitely got a bit of a spring in it. But fun fact for you baker nerds out there, most store-bought baking powder is actually twice actionable. First time, it's activated with liquid. Second time is with heat. So don't worry if it's a little bit flat still. We're gonna get it better in the oven. So now we're gonna chuck on the tomato base. So I use store-bought passata because it's only 3 buckaroos, but choose whatever your chosen god decides to tell you to use. You can use some chopped up tomatoes or whatever, and just give that a nice healthy dollop. Now grab yourself a spoon, and with a good enough slap, we should in theory, and don't forget to cover your little hole that you made there up. Perfect, look at that. If you want to make it spicy, that's easy to do. Just get your chilies and do that, and eventually you should get some ground chili. There we go. Look at that. Oh, that's really coloured my hands. Delicious. Now you want to get your pre-chopped specimens from the Vegetalia family and just give that a nice even sprinkling all around. Now if you're not a vegetarian, then grab your meat sauce from the Meatitalian family. I've just got some leftover Beef-Italian from last night's dinner, and just give that a little bit of a sprinkling too. Make sure the pieces are small, so in the oven it gets cooked properly. Now grab your cheese Italian. I've got some Taste Italian and some Parmesan. If you're not into the Dare Italian, then what you can use is some ground cashews. Ground cashews work great as a replacement for Parmesan cheese. And give that a nice sprinkle. Now you want to take your pizza and chuck it in your oven. For 12 minutes. Or until the cheese on the top is nicely browned. And in this 12 minutes, you can look at your flat and realize your flatmates are going to kill you. So if you've got a spurtle, you can actually use it as a magic wand. And boom, it's nice and clean. Just don't look at the carpet and floor. And don't chuck flour at your camera. It gets very messy very quickly. And as we wait for that to cook in the oven, I'm just going to do a quick merch plug. As this is a very much a poor man's version of You Suck at Cooking, I'm going to recommend you buy his book. It's great, he's a YouTube channel, he's funny, and he got me into cooking. I love him. Thanks, man. Don't forget that you chucked your oven on at max, so it's going to be bloody hot when you pick it up. And boom. We have pizza. Oops. Let's get some nice B-roll now. So the next step is to raise your tripod up. Just like that. So you can touch the cutting view. And give it a cheeky refocus. And there you have it. One 20-minute pizza recipe. So you can see it's not quite risen as much as you would have done with yeast. But hey, that ain't bad. And it's also 4 hours less thinking. In fact, I reckon you could probably make this in around the same time it takes for Uber Eats to deliver a Domino's. So go for it. Plus it only costs $3 a portion. That's an entire portion. Finally, due to a pizza having a curvature index of 0, the best way to stop it flopping is to just give it a fold. Hey, there's a real scientific study on this. I'll drop it in the description below.